Hey there, welcome to the Chronicle Pregame Show. I'm Ryan Hoerger alongside Brian Pollack. We're going to set up for Duke and Wake Forest. The Blue Devils play their third game in 6 days, Tuesday at 7 p.m. when they host the Demon Deacons. And it's really a test of their will, Brian, because Wake Forest isn't the toughest team around. They haven't won a road game in nearly 3 full conference seasons. But 3 games in 6 days is not easy, and we saw that kind of put to the test Sunday in Pittsburgh when the Bills kind of just looked tired, a little lethargic, and Pittsburgh really took advantage of that. The Panthers beat Duke 76-62, picking up their first win against a ranked opponent this season. So now Duke has to kind of recollect itself from that and try to bounce back against Wake Forest. How do you think, just this gauntlet of games, it's not the 4-game stretch that we just went through earlier in February for Duke, but how do you see this gauntlet of 3 games in 6 days affecting Duke on Tuesday?
Well, certainly. So we kind of seen this earlier in the season with the Blue Devils. They had several Saturday, Monday turnarounds, a few other 3 games in 6-day stretches, and they really didn't respond all that well. A lot of times they looked tired. Their lack of depth has hurt them at several times. You can see it in their jump shots, and you can really see it on the glass. That can come into play big time against the Demon Deacons. Power forward Devin is one of the top interior threats in the ACC, and he really had a field day against the Blue Devils. Earlier in January this season, he had 21 points, 12 rebounds before getting into foul trouble. So when they played Wake Forest earlier in the year, that was one of Duke's first games without Emil Jefferson. They got into foul trouble in that game, but luckily were able to escape. But I think we might see some similar issues where they might be challenged for depth again.
Yeah, definitely. So you've got Grayson Allen, Brandon Ingram, Marshall Plumlee still logging really heavy minutes. Matt Jones maybe not completely fully recovered from that sprained ankle. No one really shot particularly well for the Blue Devils in Pittsburgh on Sunday. They got almost doubled up on the glass, 39-20. So like you mentioned, handling Devin Thomas, handling Dinos Mutoglu on the glass, it's going to be huge for Duke. They don't have to necessarily win the battle of the boards, but they have to keep it much closer than 39-20 so that they can get out and run a little bit in transition. Because that's when Duke is really at his best, when they can push the ball up and down. Grayson Allen can attack the rim like he always does and draw contact and get to the line. When you look at Wake Forest, like you mentioned, Devin Thomas, he's coming off a 2-game suspension for violating athletic department policy, but he returned for Sunday night's game against Virginia Tech on senior night, and Codi Miller-McIntyre as well. He's the guy who makes them go on the perimeter. Brian Crawford, the freshman, kind of stepped into a nice scoring role for them, and Mitchell Wilbekin as well as another 3-point threat for Wake Forest. So those are the names to watch out for Wake Forest. But Brian, we talked about Duke not really shooting that well. They were 11 for 32 from downtown against Pittsburgh. It's really hit or miss. They made 11 threes, which is great, but when you're taking them in that high volume, it's not really a recipe for success.
No, and I think the key for Duke in this game is going to be to get out to a good start, kind of see those shots go through the net early in the game. Against the Panthers Saturday, they lost. First 10 points went the other way, and so that really was kind of a sign of what was to come. And we've seen earlier in the season when Duke kind of struggles on offense when they fall behind, they resort to jacking up that 3-ball, and when they're already tired, their 3rd game in 6 days, those shots really tend to not fall. Duke is a much better team when it's ahead, when it's in control of the game. Sometimes when they get behind, I think they panic a little bit and they kind of lose that flow within their offense. So a lot of times this year we've seen Brandon Ingram come out and hit a couple of threes right in the first 2 possessions. I think that would be a huge key for the Blue Devils. They can get him going early on. He's struggled a bit lately. And then from that they can open up passing lanes, driving lanes for Grayson Allen, Luke Kennard, Matt Jones, and the rest of that that perimeter offense.
You talk about desperation, Brian. Pittsburgh, clearly the more desperate team on Sunday. They had the tournament hopes really on the line, and they came through with a big win against Duke. But now Duke kind of has some of that same pressure on them. Not that they're getting like a missed NCAA tournament, they've pretty much locked themselves into a spot there. But trying to get that double bye in the ACC tournament is huge. Duke's currently tied for 5th place in the league standing with Notre Dame at 10-6, but Louisville is ahead of them and not going to be in the postseason tournament in Washington in a couple weeks. So that really means Duke and Notre Dame are effectively tied for the last double bye. And really, when you think about how strapped Duke is for depth, getting that double bye, the extra day of rest is huge. Well, not having to play Wednesday, and that means they'll have to play Thursday, Friday, Saturday to win an ACC championship if the cards fall their way. So that's really huge for Duke, especially when you got North Carolina on Saturday night in primetime here in Durham. So I think making sure that they don't look past Wake Forest at all, make sure they pick up that win against the Demon Deacons is huge for Duke going into this key game against North Carolina. So with that said, Duke and Wake Forest, They're going to tip it off Tuesday night, Cameron Indoor Stadium, one of Duke's last 2 home games of the year. You can follow all of our pregame, in-game, and postgame coverage at DukeChronicle.com or on our Blue Zone blog and at Duke Basketball on Twitter. For Brian Pollack, I'm Ryan Hoerger. We'll see you guys later.